I asked you guys to send me your high school DxD hot takes again, and this is part 2 to the last video. So if your take wasn't in the last video, it'll probably be in this one. I don't like these videos being too long, so we're gonna try to go fast today. Let's try to get this video under 20 minutes. Definitely gotta pick up the pace. The first one is from Inuzuka Gaming, and it says the world building and the lore is phenomenal, and it's what makes the show special. In this one, I'll agree with you, especially with the lore part. I think High School DxD has such interesting lore. I love the fact that they got every single mythology you can think of. They got every religion you can think of. I think it's just so cool, and that kind of ties in with the world building. I also like the power system concept of chess pieces and cards. I think those both are really cool ideas, but I think they could have done a little bit more. They could have given us more about the different mythologies and religions and the angels. The outline is good, but they could have done better with the execution, but I'll still agree with you. The next one is from W. Alderson, and it says if it had dropped the ecchi angle, it could genuinely be up there with some of the top tier shonens in terms of popularity. And this one I'll also agree with. I do think what holds High School DxD back from being a new level of popularity is the ecchi angle it takes. Because yeah, that does attract a lot of people, but it also pushes away a huge chunk of people too. I mean, even just speaking for myself, I don't watch any other ecchi or harem anime. I just hate the genre. The genre is just not something that I like. So anytime I watch an anime and it's like a harem anime, more than likely I'm gonna just write it off as something I won't like, and I won't even continue the watch. And I feel like that's what a lot of people will do with High School DxD too, because it's just an ecchi anime. So yeah, I do think if they were to drop that and they were to focus their time on building the world more, building their characters more, I don't know if I would say top tier, but I think it would be more popular than it is now. The next one is from Nakruma's FNAF Weeb Universe, and there's a few of them. The first one says there's a chance that we won't get a new season. I agree with that. I'm not super optimistic about a new season. I said this in the last one, but if it doesn't come, I won't be surprised. I won't be upset. But if it does come, I'll probably throw a party. I might release 16 videos in 1 month. But with the continuation of all other projects like the light novels and Junior High School DxD and them coming out with a little game, I still don't completely count it out. But I still wouldn't be surprised if we didn't get a new season. The next one is a continuation to the last one, and it says even if we do get a new season, it'll probably be censored due to what's happening right now with the UN and Visa. I don't know what's going on with the UN and Visa, but I don't care. Just give me a new season, give me a new stuff. If it's censored, I'll watch it censored, since I was never too big of a fan of the fan service anyway. And then the next one says I could see a collab between DxD and Chainsaw Man because they have a lot in common. I haven't seen Chainsaw Man, but I know the main character of Chainsaw Man has kind of overtaken Issei as like the main popular pervert character. So I guess that's pretty cool to see the legacy being carried on, but I doubt we'll see a collab. If it does happen, that would be good for High School DxD to get some more people watching them, but I don't know if I see that happening. The next one is from Octuple Entendre, and it says we need more Asuya and Konako. And this one I'll also agree with. I think especially Konako we need to see more of. I think the only complaint I have about how they did Konako's trauma or Konako's backstory is that it kind of gets overshadowed by Akino's. I think they could have done a better job at giving us that moment between Konako and Issei that we get to see with all the other characters, because we don't really get to see that with Konako. In the light novel, they have like a little chat during the Sona rating game, which was a really good moment, but I wish we would still get more than just that. And I think they're doing a pretty good job with Asuya. If we're just talking about how often we see the characters, Asuya's probably like the third most seen character in the harem. But I'll still agree because I do think Konako could use more focus. The next one is from Demi Mansare, and there's a lot of them. The first one says DxD has objectively the best art style for multiple different reasons. I think it's already hard to say an art style is objective just because art in general is subjective. But my personal taste, I like the old art style more than the new one. I like the old character designs more than the new ones most of the time. I know the new art style is more with the light novel, or more with the light novel now, because the old art style was more with the earlier versions of the light novel, but I still just prefer how sharp and how detailed the old art style was. I get that it's outdated, but I still like it more. The next one says the ecchi moments are fine as it's tagged as an ecchi anime. They basically say that what separates DxD from other harem animes is that it has a good story, good plot, good lore, and as long as the ecchi scenes don't ruin the serious moments, then they're fine. And the main point I'll agree with, I do think that the ecchi is fine when it's not in the way of serious moments. I mean, that's one of my bigger critiques of High School DxD, is when that does happen, it's really annoying. I hate to keep going back to it, but the Juggernaut drive scene in the light novel is so bad at this. Like, they really want you to believe that Asuya is dead. They want you to think that we just lost one of the most important characters. And instead of using that emotion to enhance the scene and enhance the viewing experience, they just throw it away by having Irina come in and play a dumb song, and then having him poke Rias's boobs to get back to normal. It's just a really poorly done scene, and that's like the greatest example of the Ecchi ruining a moment. Just because of that scene alone, Volume 6 is probably my least favorite volume I've read so far. So yeah, I'll agree with that one. The next one says that most of the girls in Issei's harem are not floundered, and it's only the girls that join later on in the light novel. And that Issei should have capped his harem off at a certain point because a lot of the girls that are added, like Yasuka, don't get any time to develop a relationship with Issei. That's the sum of that. Basically, Issei has too many girls in his harem. And this one I do agree with. Like you said, the more people you add in that harem, the less time you'll have for all the characters. Because you gotta focus on one character, then get to the next, then get to the next, then get to the next. When you have to keep doing that, you're bound to have some underdeveloped characters and characters that just don't matter. Like I said in the last video, where the harem is at the end of season 4, plus a few other people that come in during the light novel, I think that's where it should cap off. The next one says the whole purpose for disliking Issei for being a Gary stew is neither valid or credible, and if you want to apply that logic with Issei, you should apply it with the other characters as well. Honestly, I've never heard of a Gary stew before, so when I looked it up, it says a character that lacks personality, flaws, struggles, and are usually attractive and powerful. And based on Google's definition, none of those things really fit Issei at all. You can't even say that Issei lacks personality because he's hilarious. I mean, he could be a stand-up comedian if he wanted to. This is one of the funniest characters I've ever seen. But also, Issei has flaws. He goes through struggles. I mean, he struggles with his confidence the entire first season. He struggles to comprehend that the girls can like him. To call this dude a Gary stew and compare him to like The Rock in all of his movies is just ridiculous. So yeah, I agree with that one. And then the last one says that the cold hard truth is that the anime may never come back, and if it does, it's not going to be with the old art style. And I don't care if it comes back with the new art style. I don't hate the new art style. I think the new art style still looks fine. And I also agree that the old art style might not come back. The next one is from Blue Haze, and it says the anime probably has one of the best OSTs in all of anime. And I agree with this one. High School DxD's OSTs are really good, and they make the scenes just so much more emotional. I already brought up a few scenes in the last video, so let me get some new ones. The scene where Akano is telling Issei that she's half fallen angel. That scene is made a lot better by the OST. When Rias is explaining the trauma that Kuroka put on Konoko when she basically just left her. That scene is also made a lot better by the OST. The Juggernaut Drive scene, all made better by the OST. The OSTs just add so much more impact and so much more emotion. So I definitely agree with that one. The next one is from 7 Dragons 7 Swords, and it says sacred gears, rating games, and the fact that there are many mythologies. I'm assuming you're saying that this is why it's good, and I agree with these two, I guess. The sacred gears are really cool. I like how they're all so different from each other, and I also like how they go through these evolutions too. I mean, every time you see a character with the sacred gear, you're just wondering like, what could that balance breaker look like? Because the balance breakers always look so cool. I mean, even a character like Conla, a very mid character, has a sacred gear that looks cool. The only character that managed to pull off a sacred gear looking like garbage is of course Heracles. I mean, who else? That dude's a bum. But other than Heracles, all the sacred gears are just so cool. And rating games are one of the most underrated parts of High School DxD. I love it. I love the concept of the rating game. I've never read or watched a rating game in High School DxD that hasn't hit. That's why I'm so mad that they don't have the Sona rating game, because it was so good. And then I already talked about the mythologies. Just the whole idea of a bunch of mythologies and religions coming together in one world and all existing at the same times is so interesting. So yeah, I think all of those highlight what High School DxD is good at. And then the next one is actually like really similar to the last. It's from Onyx, and it says side characters, main character development, sacred gear, relationships between the group, personalities. I'm guessing you're also talking about what's good about the series. I think the side characters are cool. Azazel, Ravel. I don't know if you consider Irina a side character, but I think she's pretty cool. And like Sir Zex and Sire Org. Main character development, I agree with this one too. I like how Issei goes from this character that can't use his powers into like this expert combatant and fighter. His character progression was good there. Also, him going from this cowardly follower to a guy that can lead the team, I mean, also good there. I don't know if development is necessarily the word I would use, more just progression. They do a really good job at making sure that all the characters are progressing. I already talked about Sacred Gears. Relationships between characters might be the best thing they have going in High School DxD. Issei's relationship with Rias and all of them is so tight-knit, and I don't know, it just feels real. Their connection feels real. We see them actually talking to each other and communicating with each other. Even just like before raiding games, we see them coming up with strategies for the game. I mean, they do this character building so well in High School DxD. Obviously, Issei has a lot of good moments with all the girls and stuff. Just simple things like that, where you just create connections and relationships between characters, just makes the experience so much better. The next one is from Saga the Funniest, and it says, adding another guy to the House of Grimory would break the fandom and the show. But I don't know, you already got 3 guys in there. I don't think adding a guy would be too necessary, unless it was just to give Issei a friend to talk to. I think it definitely would probably break the fandom, especially the ones that like the fan service more than the story, because you know, that's one more guy that they're looking at instead of a girl. But I don't know if I would say it would break the show. I would need more context on what you mean. So I guess I'll disagree. The next one is from Daniel Padarenga, and it says, after what happened back in season 4, the new animation made all the female characters twice as hotter than they were before. I hope the new animation stays when season 5 come out. What do you think? I do think if they do a season 5, they should just keep the new animation going, because I don't think it makes sense to go from old animation to new to back to old. And also, like I said earlier, the old animation at this point is outdated. No one really uses that animation style or art style anymore. So if a season 5 does happen, I do think that they should just bring back the new animation, but I'll agree with this one. The next one is from Drake God, and it says, Kiba should have had a side story based on his life before his reincarnation, because he honestly has the most interesting and heartbreaking backstory, but he kind of gets pushed aside by the author due to the main story's focus being around Issei and his harem. And I think surprisingly, I'll disagree with this one. I know this one kind of seems like an obvious one to agree with, but honestly, I think they did really good with what they had. I mean, the whole first arc of season 2 is pretty much all just dedicated to Kiba. They build his story up, and they already give us his backstory in his perspective, and it all just comes together and makes one of the most emotional scenes in the entire series. And I would say possibly the best scene in the entire series. So because I feel like it worked out so well, and the scene was able to still hit so hard, I think I'll actually disagree with this one. The next one is from Not From Iran, and it says, Issei needs a more detailed backstory. The material provided in the light novel is not enough. Instead of the tragic backstory, he needs a more relevant backstory that kids and teenagers can relate to, or a mix of both. And this one I'll disagree with. I'm not a big fan of making your characters relatable, or making their lives an exact one-to-one to the viewer. A big theme in High School DxD is trauma and tragedy, and to have that theme hit every single character besides for your main character just kind of doesn't make sense to me. So I'll disagree with this one, and I appreciate your advice on how to say my channel name. I still don't know how to pronounce it. I flip back and forth between Slay XXY and Slaxy. I still haven't decided which one. The next one is from Anthony Sigan, and there's 4 of them. The first one says, do you ever think that the other girls in the series not a part of Issei's harem deserve more screen time? And of course I do. We should definitely get to know all the characters in the series. It just makes the show more complete, and it builds the world better. But at the same time, I do think the girls in the harem should get the majority of the focus. I don't think we should go focused on Seraphal for an entire volume, but I do think dedicating an entire volume to Akano is a good idea. So yes, I do think that other girls should get some attention, but the majority of it should still be on the harem girls. The next one says, how strong do you think Michael and Seraphal are? And honestly, I don't know. We rarely see Michael do anything. I would say Michael's probably around Azazel's strength, maybe a little bit stronger. And Seraphal, I would say, is probably a little bit weaker than that. I don't know, it's hard to say. Like that one person said, the power scaling with High School DxD, it makes it really hard to compare certain character strengths. The next one says, do you think Issei should be more powerful? And I don't know how much more powerful Issei should be getting. I think he should definitely have a cap to his power, because I just think OP characters are just less interesting. As long as he isn't just gapping the competition, I'll be okay with however strong he gets. And then the last one says, what do you think will happen if there was a race stronger than angels, fallen angels, and devils combined? I'm pretty sure there is one. I don't really know what they are, but I'm pretty sure there's something that's stronger than them. Plus, the dragons arguably already already are, depending what dragon you're talking about. The next one is from Slick Link, and it's not really a take, but I'll make it into a take. So basically it says that there's a lot of people on Twitter and on YouTube that blindly criticize High School DxD for its fan service and say that it has nothing but fan service, even though that's not the case. And Slick Link thinks that it doesn't make sense to blindly hate High School DxD and make bad reviews about it, specifically for views. And I'm gonna turn that into a take by saying, I think people can criticize whatever they want. I don't think it really matters. I mean, I've made a video criticizing High School DxD because it's not a perfect show. And I think if someone wants to express that, what they don't like about it, I think that's perfectly reasonable. And I'm not going to get mad at them for saying their opinion because it just doesn't matter that much to me. So there's my take on people bashing High School DxD for views. The next one is from Mr. Westcott, and it says DxD characters are interesting and cool, and there's complexity with male and female characters that other harem series need to take notes to enhance the watching experience. And this one I also agree with. I say I don't like harem series, but I do still watch harem series, and I do think a lot of them are lacking that relationship building between characters. And most of the time, they don't ever give you a reason to care about their characters. With High School DxD, they actually try to give you something to latch onto. There isn't a perfect character in the series, and it just makes all the characters more likable and more relatable. And then there's characters that are just extremely traumatized, and so you feel sympathy for those characters and you want to see them win, or you want to see them overcome their trauma. So yeah, I definitely agree that other harem anime should take this from High School DxD, but I also think High School DxD should also keep working on that area too. The next one is from Jalen Ivory, and it says that Freed is the most entertaining character in terms of dialogue and comedy, and season 2 is the best season in terms of story and animation. And I agree with both of these. I mean, I made a whole entire video just based on Freed and how funny he is. The dude's hilarious, and he's just such a wacky character in general. I really wish they would have moved forward with his character. And then season 2 being the best season, I will make a video on seasons ranked, so I don't want to spoil what the best season is, but do know that the animation in season 2 is my favorite animation. I'll just give you that, but I'll agree with your takes. The next one is from Acnologia, and I'm pretty sure this is just saying that the Sacred Gears are underutilized, especially Issei's, and the example is Ascalon. And I think I'll disagree with this one. I do think Issei using Ascalon would be cool if he actually used it. He rarely pulls that thing out, man. It's such a shame. But I don't think I would say they're underutilized. I feel like we get to learn a lot about Sacred Gears, and I feel like they tell us a lot about Sacred Gears too. We get to see characters evolve and their Sacred Gears evolve with them. As Issei gets stronger, he unlocks a new part of his Sacred Gear, whether that be the Dragon Shot, the transfer ability, or even Divine Dividing or Ascalon. All these things he unlocks with the Sacred Gear. He doesn't use all of them, but I mean, he doesn't really have to use all of them. I mean, he's not a swordsman, so I don't really expect him to use Ascalon all the time. And Divine Dividing, obviously it hurts him when he uses it. So I wouldn't say underutilized, but the real one I wanted to talk about is the take below it. It says that the dragons have good designs but don't have any presence, and then specifically calls out Tanin for not feeling that strong. And I took this as an insult because I think Tanin is one of the coolest characters. He definitely has presence and he's definitely strong, but it's not really built up in the anime. It's more in the light novel. The way they were talking about Tanin in the light novel, I mean, it was like prime LeBron James 2018 Cavs. You just couldn't stop him. So I'll disagree with that one. The next take is from Vast Gods, and it says the girls in Rias' group don't have much meaning. The only characters that serve meaning to the group is Rias, Akano, Asya, and Konako. But characters like Irina and Zenobia don't have much to contribute to Issei's story. And I'll disagree with this one too. I mean, to say Zenobia doesn't contribute anything is kind of a wild claim. Maybe not to Issei's personal story, but when it comes to Issei's success, he relies pretty heavily on Zenobia's combat ability. The only reason he was even able to beat Cyborg in the raiding game is because Zenobia cut his arm off and caused him to use the Phoenix tier early. Because imagine if Issei would have took Cyborg to his absolute limit and then Cyborg just popped the Phoenix tier. Issei would have been doomed. Zenobia definitely contributes to the story. I think you have it backwards. I think what you should be looking at is what Issei contributes to their stories, because Issei does help Zenobia out a lot. So I'll disagree with this one. The next one is from Shosan, and it says, I feel like Rias is one of the most underdeveloped characters in the show. She needs a bit more depth like Akano and Kiba. And I've been seeing a lot of Rias disrespect lately. I think it's getting a little out of hand, so I think I'll have to make a video defending Rias. This same thing happened with Issei, and the Issei video still hasn't come out yet. I feel like a super villain. I keep mentioning this Issei video and it's just never coming out. It'll be out at some point, I promise. But yeah, I'll make a Rias video to explain why I don't think Rias is underdeveloped and why I think Rias has now become this overhated character. So just know that I disagree with that one. The next one is from Jimwell Rulin, and it says the anime is good for me. That's really interesting, Jimwell, because I remember on my high school DxD waifu tier list, I remember you commenting the throw up emoji. So you guys think I don't read comments. I read some of them. Every once in a while I read a comment. You can't fool me. And then over here, I think this is you saying you hate every character. See? The switch up. But whatever, I'll let it slide. I agree with you. I think the anime is pretty good too. The next one is from Hamza, and it says that Rias is hotter than Akano both persona and looks wise. And I don't know, it kind of just depends what you prefer. Do you prefer that dominant leadership, or do you prefer someone who loves pain? I don't really know. But I mean, I guess I'll agree with you, because I think Rias' personality is cooler than Akano's. The next one is from Sayud Mukherjee. The first one says, it would be great if the author ended the series with a fair and square Issei vs volley match. And this one I agree with. I think that is the only way to end it, since this is like what the characters have been talking about since season 1. Since season 1, they've been talking about this white versus red dragon fight, and I want to see this fight, not to the death of course. And to add another hot take on top of yours, I think Volley needs to win that fight. So I agree with that one. The next one says, High School DxD cannot be the best anime, but it's definitely the best ecchi harem anime, because the storytelling is something different than your basic generic ecchi anime. And this one I also agree with. It's definitely not the best anime, but it is a good anime, and it is my favorite ecchi or harem anime. I think they do good with the story, the characters, relationships, moments. They have a lot of good moments. There's just a lot more care put into High School DxD than your other usual basic harem anime. The third one says the DxD's OSTs are really good, but the Guts theme is far superior. I don't know the Guts theme, so I can't say nothing about that. The fourth one says Rias can have her character development if she's able to use the full extent of her power of destruction and master it by herself or anyone's help except Issei's. She relies on him too much. I do agree that Rias does need to rely on Issei less, because as the story goes on, she kind of just becomes this, I don't want to say overly dependent on Issei, but she definitely loses her aura that they built up in the first season. She's still a good leader after the first season. The focus just gets taken off her and gets put onto Issei. So I guess I'll agree with that one, because I do think she needs to learn how to master her powers, and she needs to rely on Issei less. The next one says season 3's ending was not bad. I'll disagree with this one. I think the moment between Rias and Issei at the end was cool, but it's more like just that entire little arc as a whole was really confusing, and it was paced really badly. It really just feels like 3 random episodes thrown in. So I'll definitely disagree with that one. And then the last one says a mini-series dedicated to Azazel's backstory would be enough to describe the Fallen Angels faction lore. It's like hitting 2 birds with 1 stone, and I agree with that one. We definitely need something more with Azazel. I mean, he's this character that tells us everything about the world. He knows everything basically, and he's an interesting character too that has so much hidden guilt. It would be really interesting to explore that more. So yeah, I'll agree with that one too. The next one is from the Dark Author, and it says Rias is a much bigger block than Asya. You hear all the time that Asya is a block to Issei, but I've rewatched DxD and Rias does it a lot more, yet nobody complains. And this was like the main point I made in my Asya gets too much hate video. This is the main reason why people hate on Asya, but like he said, Rias interrupts a little bit more than Asya. In that video, I went scene by scene with every interruption I could think of, and Rias did it a little bit more than Asya did it. But of course, Rias doesn't get any hate for it, or the other characters don't get any hate for it when they do it. Only Asya gets hate for doing this thing. It kind of just shows how inconsistent people's views are. So that one is just complete facts. 100% agree with that one. Also, you guys should check this guy out. He makes some cool reaction videos, and he's even reacted to my content. I appreciate you, Dark Author. I don't think this video is going under 20 minutes because this last one's gonna take a while, but it's from Sky, and there's multiple. It says, I'll be honest, High School DxD isn't as great as we thought it was. Most of us have nostalgia for it, and some sometimes it does make us still remember things unbiasedly, but honestly, it's just not that great. And the first reason says the girls just become Issei's harem girls. They become Flanderized to the point I don't see why they bother trying to give them depth. Zenovia, Rias, and Asya are the biggest examples. And there's some clarification in the comment below it. It says Rias felt like she had a different personality in season 1, but after Issei stopped the wedding, she became head over heels for him, and her character basically just became her trying to get his attention in competition with the other girls, which I wouldn't mind if that wasn't her only characteristic. And when they're out there fighting enemies, she pretty much needs to be saved or gets one shot every single time, but she's supposed to be strong. And Zenovia just wants Issei's babies, that's pretty much it. And Asya, while it makes sense why she loves him, she's only really the sweet girl of the group and all about Issei, which isn't bad per se, but that doesn't make her interesting. Yeah, I'll disagree with this one. I don't think Rias just becomes like this Issei-centered character. I do think it becomes a part of her character, but obviously that's because this is the main relationship they're trying to build. It wouldn't make any sense for them to have Issei and Rias as the most important thing in the series and then never build to that. But just because Rias is always getting beat in the battlefield doesn't mean she isn't useful. There are other ways to be useful in a battle other than just fighting or being strong. Rias is leading the group and she's doing a good job at it. And this is especially good in the light novel. I think it was the Diodora rating game where Rias is just like best leader ever. She's telling everybody what to do, where to go, how to attack. She's a good leader. She really is. And like I said, I'll make a video on Rias because I don't think she's this horrible character that people say she is. I mean, she has goals and she's working towards those goals the entire time. It isn't just Issei she's trying to work towards. But you get 2 of her goals just in the first season. One of them was that she wants to make her name for herself so that they respect her as Rias and not just by her last name. And the other one is she wants to find true love, obviously because she's been shipped with Riser her whole life. And she's actively working towards those 2 goals throughout the seasons. Asya is the only character that I do think is like an Issei-centered character, but that's also in line with her character. So everyone that's taken Asya in has just abandoned her, until Issei shows up, of course. He's the first person to really treat her like a friend. The goal we get from her is that she wants to make a bunch of friends. That is Asya's main goal. So yeah, I think it makes perfect sense for her to be attached to Issei. So with Asya, I mean, it's literally just what her goal is. That's what she's working towards the entire season, until she moves on to the next thing. And Zenovia, I think, is like the least Issei-centered character. Well, first of all, I think Zenovia came in at a really unfortunate time. She came in while they were focused on Kiba, Akano, and Konako. And then season 4 is obviously all about Issei and Rias' relationship. So she doesn't really get her moment until after. But Zenovia still also has things that she wants to do outside of just baby making. The moments play differently in the anime and the light novel. In the anime, she notices that Kiba has surpassed her. She realizes that she's not the strongest knight on the team anymore and that she's starting to trail behind him. And she doesn't want to be left behind by him. It's like a quick moment of insecurity that we see from her, where we get to see what she's actually thinking. Because most of the time it seems like nothing's going on up there. But her goal for season 3 specifically is just to get stronger and not let Kiba gap you. She wants to still be useful to the team. She really isn't that focused on Issei. I don't even know where that even comes from. I think she's more just focused on her friends in general. The love she has for Asya is developed throughout the story. Her and Asya are so similar. Obviously they both love God, but more importantly, they were both thrown out of the church and called heretics by God's supporters. And she was kicked out just because she knew that God was dead. Her and Asya go through this same thing together, and they were able to bond over that. One of the first things Zenovia says after she gets reincarnated as a devil is that her life has no meaning without God. And the person that took her in and showed her that life actually does have meaning without God is Asya. They're so similar, so the connection that they have just feels so much more real. I would argue she cares more about Asya than Issei. We also see her go through like a little pinch of character development. When we first meet her, she's really closed off and antisocial. You know, she lets Irina do all the socializing. And she's just really rude in general. She doesn't know how to filter herself. She was so mean to Asya, or she thought she was a heretic, or she thought she was this devil healer. It wasn't until after she went through what Asya had to go through where she understood and she changed. You know, she turned into this good guy, an actual good guy. she comes out of that shell, she becomes just a nicer person, basically. She does like a 45-degree turn with her character, basically. So Zenobia, I really think, is like the least Issei-centered character. Most of the time we see her, she's hanging out with someone else. So yeah, I'll disagree with this one. The next one says, the humor and fan service clash heavily with the dramatic scenes. As for the fan service, it's way too much and in your face. I don't mind fan service. I even like it sometimes. But when they're trying to be serious, it's just really bad when it's out of the blue and the jokes themselves kind of make the series feel like it wanted to parody itself. But at the same time, try to be taken seriously, and quite frankly, the fan service and jokes overshadow what little development the characters have because of how it's overabundant and over the top it is. This take has already been submitted before by this same person, so I'm just gonna kind of go over it really quickly again. I mostly disagree with it, but I do get where the frustration is coming from. I think it's exaggerating to say that the fan service completely ruins all scenes or makes it hard to take the whole show seriously, because at the end of the day, the scenes that they really want you to take seriously, they don't put a lot of fan service in them. Scenes like Asuya dying in season 1, Rias resigning, Kiba's balance breaker, Issei's fake death against Loki, none of these scenes really have any fan service in them. I remember complaining about seeing Asuya's nipple back when I made my high school DxD is mid video, but after rewatching that scene, I noticed that it didn't make a difference in my watching experience at all, because it wasn't just shoved in my face. But on the other hand, there are moments where the fan service is ruining a scene that is supposed to be taken seriously, but one of the ones that bothers me the most is when Freed fights Irina and completely tears all her clothes off, and we're supposed to be feeling sad that Irina's dying or something. In that scene, it is thrown in your face, and in that scene, it is annoying. But for the major ones, it's not that big of a problem. So I'll disagree with it. The third one says that some things were developed conveniently, like Issei's trauma, which was done very poorly and not convincingly, and it was only brought up when the drama was needed between him and Rias. As the other times he was still perverted, still wanted a harem, and it's treated more like he's nervous and oblivious, and is played up for laughs. Not once was it stated that he had trauma until that scene needed to happen, or one-off shot dream he had that wasn't brought up again until the clubbing scene. First of all, trauma should never be stated outright. Trauma should always be shown and not told. It's not something that you usually know is there until something happens to show you that it's there. But some moments of trauma in the anime are obviously the dream segment, you brought that up, the Juggernaut Drive scene where we see Rainier come back to taunt Issei for failing to save Asuya again. There's one scene in like the beginning of the first episode of season 3 where he's walking with the girls and then he just randomly thinks of Rainier and he starts hugging Asuya. He has a whole conversation with Roswaisa about it where she's like, this Loki thing happened because there's something still on your mind that's haunting you, which is like your biggest indicator that this dude still has some trauma. Even in season 1, when Rias is asking him about true love or whatever, and then Issei goes on like this rant about Rainier without actually saying her name, I mean, it's spelled out for you right there. I'm pretty sure he literally says that he's traumatized. His trauma isn't hidden, but it's not directly shown to you. I mean, even just Akano confessing her love to him. She literally said that she liked him in the first episode of season 2. Nothing ever comes out of her saying that. Nothing happens after that. He almost acts like it was a joke. When someone directly tells you that they like you, that's kind of your moment of, oh, okay, I'm good now. But it's not for Issei. Here, put it like this. When Rainier told Issei that she liked him, they instantly got together and became a couple. But when Akano told Issei that she likes him, he basically ignored it. And again, that's because he's not really that oblivious. He is just traumatized from Rainier. When you have this many girls throwing yourselves at you, at what point are we going to say that this is too extreme for it to be just straight up obliviousness? You're supposed to question these things, and then it's supposed to be a grand reveal that it's because of Rainier. So yeah, just kind of all around disagree with that take. And then the next one says the girls fall in love with Issei for trivial reasons. The only characters who realistically would like Issei is Akano and Aiko. Akano and Issei and Aiko have more in common personality wise, and then he just restates that other take from before. But I don't know who Aiko is, so I'm just ignore that. First, we have to establish the difference between loving someone and liking someone. For example, Akano liked Issei after she saw how cool he looked when he was saving Rias from Riser, but she didn't start loving Issei until he helped her through her trauma. But with that being said, I still disagree with this take. Rias is the one that confuses me the most because I don't know why people act like she has no reason to like Issei. I mean, he literally saved her life. She was going to marry the person she hates the most. This is like the most classic example of knight in shining armor ever. In what universe does it not make sense for someone to like someone else for saving their lives? And on top of that, Issei also just treats her like Rias. He doesn't treat her like Miss Grimmery. He just treats her like normal Rias, which is the other thing she wants the most besides love. He gives her plenty of reason to like her. Same with Asya. Asya, again, was abandoned as a child by everyone she loved. Her parents, the church, the fallen angels, until Issei took her in and treated her like a friend. He was her first friend and he was the first person to show her love. Because of him, she's able to meet new friends. She's able to live a happy life. She's able to have a permanent home. So hers makes complete sense too. And Konoko's story is literally the exact same as Akino's. So if you're giving a pass to Akino, you have to also give it to Konoko. Konoko and Akino are both struggling with their identity, and they're scared of showing their true self. And then Issei just helps them through those problems. It's literally the exact same thing. Issei makes it known that he's always going to be there for Konoko, and that everything is going to be okay if she uses her power. He makes her feel confident in herself, and just makes her a better person. So yes, Konoko also has a reason because he helped her through her trauma, just like Akino. Zenovia's is like the hardest to spot because again, she didn't get her moment until later. But with Zenovia, she liked Issei for his dragon power, but didn't start loving him until she saw that he's actually a good person. Zenovia was kicked out by the church. She was forced to leave her home and adjust to a completely new life. But Issei also helped her out too by convincing Michael to let her pray. God was the most important thing to her, and by letting her pray, she still is able to keep that part of her old life together. And then obviously later on they have that conversation when she's feeling insecure about her abilities and her powers, and Issei's there to cheer her up and make it known that he thinks that she still is able to be as strong as Kiba. He's just always there for her. He even lets her use Ascalon when she is feeling vulnerable in her abilities. He does all these things for all these characters, so I think it definitely makes sense why they like him. And then the fourth one kind of has like a bunch of them inside of it. The first one says it felt like the creator had a better series in the works, but decided for whatever reason to make it horny bait dialed up and having fan service for the sake of having it. Kind of just saying again, it's too much fan service. And this one I definitely disagree with. This was definitely what the creator wanted to do. If you follow him on Twitter, you will see how much he loves High School DxD and its characters, but also how much he loves the fan service in High School DxD. Like, just go to his Twitter and look at his tweets. You'll see the most random stuff. So he definitely knew what he was doing. He wanted this to be his series. There's another take in here that says, after season 1, the series got repetitive. New girls show up, potential harem candidates, new villain pops up, gets defeated at the end of the season, and ends up being just as forgettable as when they showed up, besides for Rainier. And this one I'll also disagree with. I don't even think Rainier is the only memorable villain. I think Diodora was a memorable villain. Diodora is one of the reasons why Issei was even able to know that he still had that trauma for Rainier. Because he came in and tried taking Asya from him again, that created a bunch of flashbacks for him. It made him remember those times with Rainier, because Rainier was trying to do the same exact thing. The one thing I will say, they don't like killing off their good villains, and they like making them into like friends of the group. But yeah, the series definitely doesn't get repetitive, especially considering we're focused on a new character at every season. Each season we're on a different character, and each arc is about something new, so it doesn't feel repetitive to me. And then the wrap up conclusion statement is, I don't hate the series, but I have come to see it's not as great as I once thought, and have sort of outgrown it. I have love for it still, but DxD is not the best harem, and is only carried by the action scenes, over the place story, weak attempts at development and fan service. There's nothing wrong with outgrowing a series and just not liking it anymore. That's what I thought was going to happen when I rewatched it. Just let it go. You don't gotta hold on to these memories. It's okay. I'm not gonna judge you. But it's also definitely not carried by action scenes. The action scenes aren't that good. Mediocre at best. And then blah blah blah, weak development, fan service. Just end the video, please. Disagree with all the takes. Just end the video. That's finally over. There were so many takes sent, but thank you to everyone who sent a take. I know this video ended up being way longer than 20 minutes, so my bad for that. But yeah, I think next video I need to do a Rias video, because the Rias video will make the club room video make more sense. I still haven't decided. I don't know which one I'll do first yet, but I guess we'll see when we see. But yeah, I'm gonna get out of here. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.